Hi Axel, so I'm happy to see that you've written some more essays for us. Well done. Let's take a look at what you had to say. Okay, this one is about whether teachers or parents have more influence on children's intelligence and social development. Let's see what you wrote about this. Okay, experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated about whom is the principal influencer on modeling youngsters' social abilities as well as their intellectual potential. All right, it's a little awkward. Let's see. Okay, so generally, I wouldn't have used the noun here. It's just not really natural sounding. So you could have debated about who primarily influences youngsters' social abilities as well as their intellectual potential. I think that's a better way to phrase this. It's certainly more natural sounding, okay? Some believe that educators have a greater impact on these characteristics than parents. Here you need some sort of contrast. So, however, personally I disagree with this line of thinking. This essay will argue that parental upbringing is the most vital variable, using examples from the UK government and Oxford University to demonstrate points and prove arguments. I don't think you mean parental upbringing. I think you mean parental influence, parental guidance, something like that. But it's almost as if you're saying, when you say parental upbringing, it almost sounds like you're saying raising the parents, like do you know what I'm saying? Like bringing up the parents is almost what it sounds like, okay? And that's obviously not what you mean. All right. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that parents have full responsibility for nurturing the intellect and social skills of their offspring. The central reason behind this is because the amount of time spent in bringing children up at home is undoubtedly superior compared to that, not one, that invested by teachers. Okay? For example, recent empirical research by the UK government demonstrated that in 95% of the young people with marked intellectual disabilities, plural, and antisocial behavior, there was almost non-existent parental company. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that family guidance is vital. On the other hand, although there is a case for what is learned inside the classroom favoring other abilities, the impact of the educators on the intellect and social growth is overstated. This is largely because their function is mainly focused on the obtention. No, I think you want like a noun for obtain. Acquisition is the word you want. So the acquisition of knowledge and other educational competences. For instance, an extensive study carried out by Axel University showed that children who did not attend school for 3 months had lower scores in knowledge assessments than their counterparts. However, their IQ and sociability was slightly superior. Interesting. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that school teachers do not have a relevant role, LE, not LL, in these two latter abilities. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that household guidelines are paramount in improving these important qualities. It is predicted parental participation will gradually grow in importance. Okay, I actually really like what you wrote a lot. Your arguments were good. A lot of the language was good. So it's a good essay. It's well written. I have one concern. I want you to reverse these paragraphs because you're in favor of parents. You state it in the beginning. You state it in the end. Therefore, this paragraph has to go closer to conclusion. It's one of the conventions of essay writing. We put the side that we support last, okay? So just reverse these paragraphs, and then it's pretty well written. All right, nice job. So let's get your task 1. It would really help if you could include the image of the graph in your answer. Keep it in mind for future task 1s. Okay, the bar chart shows the amount of sales of 2 chip manufacturers, Intel and AMD, in France during the year 2017. In January, sales started at 50,000 and 25,000 in Intel and AMD, respectively. Then, during February, AMD increased sales 5-fold that of January. Those of January sales, reaching its highest point at around 120,000, whereas Intel slightly raised their sales by a third. Okay? Posteriorly. All right, I think you mean subsequently. In March, Intel sales had a further increment to nearly 100,000 after a dramatic drop in April to its lowest level. Okay. Sales went up, peaking at 125,000 in June. Simultaneously, AMD rapidly decreased its sales from 40,000 in March to 0 in June. In the second half of the year, Intel sales abruptly fell in July to 25,000, and despite this, maybe you could have put but despite this or something. Sales steadily increased throughout the second semester, leveling off at around 100,000 over the last 2 months. In contrast, there was a sudden rise in the sales of AMD in July at 100,000. When you say of, it's as if you're saying it was plus 100,000. So if that's what you mean, then okay. But if you're trying to say that it reached 100,000, then you should say at. Or to, a sudden rise in the sales to 100,000. So like I said, because I don't have the graph, I don't know. If it reached 100, then it should be 2. If it increased by an additional 100,000, then you should say by. Or even of would have been okay, yeah. All right. Afterwards, sales fluctuated. Why don't you start a new sentence here? Afterwards, sales fluctuated from 50,000 in August to roughly 90,000 in October. In November, AMD had the lowest sales rate of both companies with 10,000 and finished the year with a minor increment of approximately 25,000. Why are you saying that it's the lowest sales rate? I mean, in June, it didn't have any sales, right? So that's not exactly true. I mean, the lowest was when it had none. Okay. Overall, it can be seen that sales from both companies had drastic fluctuations over the period. However, Intel was a manufacturer with better sales in the majority of the year. AMD had the worst turnover, where Intel had the best sales record rate in this period. You didn't have to write this last sentence at all. I think it would have been fine if you had just stopped here. It's pretty redundant, actually, okay? But on the whole, I like this. I like the way you organize your answer. I like the way you use different language. So I'm actually really quite pleased with this. There were a couple of areas, obviously, that I wanted you to change, as I've already stated. But on the whole, I like it as a task one, okay? So good job. It was organized well, and you really selected the major points, and you dealt with them effectively. All right? So good job. Now just correct these for us. Return them back corrected. Don't forget to add the mistakes to your error correction list. We'll be waiting for your next essays. So good luck with them, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you write next.